If you're a wholesaler and flipper, you understand the objection handling training that's out there is in the prehistoric ages when it comes to sales training. People are using old, washed out tactics that just don't work anymore. Things like lowering your status, falling back on the sword, saying, is it me? Is it something I said? Is it something that I did? Makes you sound needy. Or even worse yet, just going back to the comparables, the rehab costs, like that's what they care about. So you need to understand sellers do not care that you need to make money. They care that they're actually solving their problem. And so in today's video, I'm going to be covering a super simple 3-step process that you can follow. And if you do this correctly, you will be able to close more deals after this video. If you're new to this channel, all we do is we teach individual wholesalers how to scale their business to $100,000 per month. And then from there, how to duplicate themselves to have other reps hitting $100,000 a month consistently. So that way you can build a multiple 7-figure business. And if you're already subscribed, welcome back. As always, I have another banger for you guys. You have an entire breakdown of the objection handling process. You need this for it to work effectively, but we'll put it, I don't know, somewhere over here in the video, so you guys can click that. You guys can watch that video as well, breaking down objections like money, time, logistics, fear, all of the main objections, and then obviously some smoke screens. But if you don't understand this process, it's going to be very difficult. So make sure you watch until the end so you can understand every single part of how to make objection handling work. So step 1 of your objection handling process is being able to isolate the actual objection. I run this training with my team all the time, and some of our students in our advanced inner circle, is making sure that they understand what the real objection is. And when I have new reps that hop onto my team or new students into my program, a lot of times they're like, hey, I want to role play a partner objection. And so I'll say, okay, let's go through the partner objection. And they'll skip the most important step, which is, hey, your partner aside, would you do it? And what will happen is they're blaming their partner. The seller's blaming their partner and saying, hey, I need to go talk to somebody else. But really, it's a concern that they have. And we wouldn't know unless we learn how to isolate the objection. For example, what we train all of our students to do, and I train my team to do, is whenever somebody says, hey, I need to go speak to my wife, I need to go speak to my husband, I need to go speak to XYZ person, we say, hey, that's certainly not a problem. You can do that. Help me understand. Them aside, everything that we covered, is that what you are looking for? And there's 3 main objections that we need to overcome at any point inside of our sales process. So those objections are, and this is in the other training, is first, we got money, we got logistics, and we have fear. All the objections really come down to those 3. You might be wondering, like, what about time frame? What about that? Logistics and time frame, like, so under logistics, we might have a time objection, we might have a valid concern, something that maybe it's not that bad of an objection, it's like something they're concerned about with the agreement or with the process. We have other objections, for example, a literal need for more money. And so we have to problem solve how to get them to their new result with the money we have on the table. Even money gets broken down into different types of money objections. So for example, we have a breakdown of multiple quotes. I need to get multiple quotes. That is a price objection. We have a breakdown of I want more because of a Zillow price, right? Like a comparison objection. We have a bunch of other objections that we go through. And in the fear objection, there's a ton of other fear objections. There's fear of themselves. There's fear of you, like they don't trust you. And so you need to be able to isolate which one it is. If you don't isolate the right objection, you're never going to be able to overcome it because you're not understanding their real concern. For example, if they say, well, it's not enough money, you need to understand what they mean by that. Is it not enough money for them to put down a down payment on the next house? Is it not enough money compared to their neighbor's house that sold for XYZ? And I'll give you just a simple objection handler for each one, right? If they say, well, it's not enough money because Zillow says my house is worth XYZ. Once I fully understand their concern, I go through all of my normal processes, I disarm them. Might eventually get to the point to say, hey, and that's a valid concern. I guess my only concern at this point is what's more important to you? Is it being able to sell the house in the next 30 days so you can start spending that time with your family? Or is it holding on to that price that Zillow says on their website? Well, it's definitely spending more time with my family. And why do you feel like that is? That would be a perfect example of how to overcome that objection. But if their objection is, I need more money to be able to afford the next place, now it moves to logistical. So I have to solve that differently. And so if you do not isolate the objection, you're never going to understand how to overcome it because you're just going to be shooting in the dark and doing things like going back to the logistics. Well, the house needs this much in work. The other properties are selling for this. Sellers don't care about that. They don't want you making a bunch of money off their property. Even if they say, yeah, I know that you need to make a profit. They don't want you to make a profit off them. They want to be able to solve a problem. And that's our job. And so first thing you need to do before you go through anything else is you need to understand the objection. The second thing is you need to go deeper until you fully understand every concern with that objection. So for example, let's talk about fear for a second. Seller might say, I just don't know that you're going to be able to close on this. So what does that actually mean for them? And this is one of the parts where I get involved in my sales process a lot. So I do a lot of manager calls. And what that means is somebody on my team will have a deal that's right on the finish line. It's right about to get locked up, but they're getting hit with some very simple objections. So last Thursday, it was, hey, I feel like I could get more money. They looped me in. I overcame that objection by going back to the needs. I really understood what the concern was, and then we got it locked up. Most of the time, it ends up being some sort of fear objection. And so I'll give you another example from a manager call that I did a couple weeks back. It was 3 sisters, and they just had a fear objection at the end of the day. So my rep loops me in. He says, hey, why don't you just talk to the owner? Maybe he can help you out with that. Their concern was, hey, I don't know that you're going to be able to close it, right? So the first thing that I asked is, what's your biggest concern with that, right? And they were like, well, I don't know, just that you're not going to close. And so I didn't really like that answer. So I asked the question a different way. I said, well, help me understand, what's the worst case scenario in your mind? Well, the worst case scenario is I pack up all of my stuff, I pay for all of these movers, and then on the 60th day, this was going to be a 60-day close. On the 60th day, you tell me that you can't do it. And I've already packed up all my stuff and I'm completely screwed. Now I understand the entire concern. And so what I'll do from there is I'll give them a suggestion that actually solves that one concern. And I'll go over that in a second. But my general rule of thumb when I'm doing objection handling is the 80-20 rule. I want to be spending 80% of the time understanding all of their concerns and everything around that concern, and only 20% of the time solving that problem. So if you're ever in a conversation, especially like men are notoriously bad for this more than women. Women tend to listen a little bit better than men do. But if you're like, for example, if you're a man and you're in a conversation with your wife, most of the time she just wants you to listen. And if you listen enough, maybe she'll be receptive to feedback. So if your wife comes up to you and she's like, man, I'm just trying to figure out my day. I'm so stressed. I've got all these things. And you're just like, well, why don't you just do this? Why don't you just relax? Right? That's going to start an argument. You guys probably understand that if you're married, right? You're going to have something like that. And so what they really want from you is they want you to fully understand everything. So if you just spend time, 80% of your time asking questions, when you give feedback, they are much more likely to be receptive to that feedback because you spent the time understanding all of their concerns. Well, why are you actually stressed? Well, I've got the baby and the baby has nap time at this time. And that's what time my gym class is. And then I've got this and I'm trying to build this. I'm trying to do that. And what's your biggest concern with everything? Where do you feel like most of your time is going? What do you feel like is causing you the most stress? Are you open to a suggestion there? What if you did this? If I just provide the solution right away, it's going to start an argument. The same way with a seller, they're just going to shut down. For example, if I got on the phone with these sellers and they said, well, I just don't know that you can close. And I go, well, I'll just send you some reviews. Would that help you? They're gonna be like, I don't really know if that's going to help, right? So what I did is I understood all of their concerns. That was the biggest one, that they weren't going to be able to, they were going to pack up all their stuff. They weren't going to be able to get to their next property. And so then I said, hey, and are you open to a suggestion there? Let's say that it didn't take 60 days to know that. Let's say it took like 2 weeks max. Would that absolutely kill you? Oh no, 2 weeks would be fine. Well, honestly, my rep didn't explain the program properly. We're going to be putting the property on the market. We're going to know in the next 2 weeks for sure if we're going to have a buyer. And so what we'll do is we'll just call you after every single showing and let you know what the feedback was and when we have our buyer locked in. We're really good at this, so we wouldn't be offering you a price that we couldn't close on. But if it was 2 weeks versus the 60 days, could you just hold off packing for the next 2 weeks? Oh yeah, that's not a problem. I could hold off packing. All right, perfect. What are any of your other concerns? Then they tell me, well, I haven't seen you guys. I don't know anything. Okay, well, understand what's their biggest concern with that. I spend 80% of the time understanding their concern. And then eventually it was just a simple fix. It was like, hey, what if we just hopped on a Zoom call and you guys can see me? I sent them a Zoom link. They were able to see me. Everything was fine. But because I spent 80% of the time understanding their concern, the 20% of a solution was very, very simple. And the last part, this is a common question that I get is, John, how do I know when to keep pushing versus when to just let it go? How do I know when to continue to objection handling without sounding needy? And my answer is always the same. As long as you are framing all of your statements, all of your questions as on their side, you never feel needy and you never sound needy. And so I can sit there and I have calls that I give to my advanced inner circle students of me literally objection handling a seller right at the signature. I'm talking about going over the agreement. It was already an hour-long sales call, but I spent 2 hours objection handling a seller just to get them to sign because I was framing my conversation the right way. They never felt like it was high pressure. And so, for example, let's say you're right there at the signature. You know, the seller's like, well, hold on. Can I just read it a little bit? Can I spend like a day and just read it? And then I'm going to get back to you. And you just go, yeah, what did you want to read over? Well, hold on. I thought you said everything looked good. What was your biggest biggest concern? Or you pull back, right? Like, this is a terrible thing that I've heard before is like, yeah, usually when people tell me that it's something that I said or they don't like the offer, they're just afraid to tell me no. So what is it, right? Also makes you sound needy, also crushes your status. And so what I'll do instead is I'll say, hey, absolutely, that's not a problem at all. Honestly, my entire goal here is to make sure that you're 100% comfortable, because if you're not comfortable, this doesn't even make sense to do. We might as well just rip up the agreement. So help me understand, when you're reading this over, what do you feel like are the biggest concerns that you're going to run into? What are the things that we didn't cover that you're still looking for to make sure that you're making the right decision for you? And I have to frame it. So before I go through any sort of objection handler, I need to frame on their side. So that might be the example of a fear objection. Let's say the seller says, I need to go get more quotes, and I don't want to feel like I'm leaving money on the table. I might say, hey, that's certainly not a problem. You can go get 3 quotes. You can go get 10 quotes. You can go get 100 quotes. My biggest concern isn't whether you work with me or somebody else. My biggest concern is that you're making the right decision for you. So that being said, help me understand the money that we covered. Is that enough for you to be able to get to your next property? Yeah, it is. Well, why do you feel like it would be, right? And it's all about how I frame it. So if I'm not framing my questions, I sound needy. I sound pushy. But if I am framing them properly, then I'll be able to ask as many objection handling questions as I need to, because I'm really just trying to help them overcome their own concerns. And I am on their side. When the seller feels like you're on their side of the table, they are much more likely to want to work with you. So this is just like the tip of the iceberg. If you try these 3 steps, number 1, isolate the objection. Number 2, understand their full concern. And then number 3, frame on their side before you provide any sort of solution. You are going to lock up more deals. And if you want some advanced objection handling, we do an objection handling call every single Thursday inside of our advanced center circle, where we're going to break down step by step the multiple quotes objection, the I want more money objection, the I need more money objection, the fear objection, step by step, every single one. We have a process where we will role play with you. We will listen to your calls, and then you can role play with us so you can actually perfect them. We also have sales training 5 times a week. We have a business coach who's done over $2 million a month wholesaling real estate. We have dispo help, lead management help, and everything you need to be able to scale your business to multiple 7 figures. So I'm going to drop a description in the link for you to be able to apply if you're doing enough revenue, and some additional resources for you guys that aren't quite there yet. So make sure you guys like and subscribe for new videos every single week. I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye, everybody.